In this lecture, we'll talk about blind OS command injection vulnerabilities. So in the previous lecture, we were able to inject a system command in a request and see the result of the command execution in the response. So in this case, it's very easy to validate the existence of the bug and even to exploit it, because you can literally see the result right in front of you as if you're executing the command on the terminal. Now, in many cases, the target web application might be vulnerable to an OS command execution similar to what we have in here, and you'd be able to exploit it exactly the same way that you see in here. But the web application is not going to show you the result of the command execution. Hence the name blind OS command injection, and therefore making it harder to discover or spot. In this case, we can execute a command that might cause the target system to pause or sleep for a few seconds and then monitor the time taken for the response. Let me show you an example. So again, I'm going to share the link in the resources of this lecture, and I'm actually going to turn off my proxy because it's already running. And we have a website that is very similar to the one that we've seen previously. Test everything as usual. But I know where the bug is. It's in the submit feedback in here. And as you can see, you have a number of input boxes which you should manipulate, as we said before, to discover all of the vulnerabilities and exploits that you learned before and that you will learn in the future. But I'm actually just going to fill this with some dummy values. And you want to put anything in here, click on send feedback, and analyze the result that you get. And as you can see, it just seems like it's actually submitting your feedback. But let's do it again. And this time, I'm going to turn on my interceptor first and send the request. And as you can see, we have a number of values that can be manipulated by us, by the user. You can edit them in here in plain text, or you can edit them in here in the inspector under the request body parameters. But if I edit it now and forward it, I'll have to fill this form again, click on submit, and edit it here again to test for other vulnerabilities. Therefore, as usual, I'm going to right click and send it to the repeater so that I can modify the values in the request and see the response straight away without wasting any time, similar to what we've been doing so far. Now, as I mentioned, everything after an equal sign should be tested, but I know the vulnerable parameter right now, which is the email. So in a real life scenario, you want to test every single value that you see after the equal, but I don't want to waste your time. That's why we're sticking with this one right here. And we're simply going to do what we learned before. So we're going to put a comma, pwd, and we're going to click on send. And as you can see, we get an empty response. Now we know pwd should show us our working directory, but we can see that we got nothing. Now we could test other commands as well in here, but I know this exploit is not going to work because the web application is not going to display the result for us in here anyway, even if the command is being executed on the target system. So as mentioned, this is an example of a blind command execution. So what we're going to do is execute a command that will delay the execution of the application. An example would be the sleep command. So let me show you a quick example. In your terminal, you can simply type sleep followed by the amount of seconds that you want the terminal to sleep for. And when I hit enter, I won't see the prompt for another 5 seconds. As you can see now, I got the prompt again. So if I inject this command in the target application, and if the target application is vulnerable to a command execution, I don't even need to see the result. If the target application sleeps for 10 seconds or 5 seconds or whatever amount of seconds I specify, then I will know that the target application is executing my commands. And therefore, even though we can't see the result of the command, we know that the target is vulnerable, and we can execute other more dangerous commands that will allow you to gain full control over the server. And as I mentioned in the previous lecture, I covered that in the website hacking course that I have, but this is not really relevant for bug hunting because simply displaying impact this way is enough for you to get your bounty. So we're going to delete the pwd and we're going to type sleep. And I'm actually going to put a plus instead of a space because I'm submitting this through a HTTP request, and I'm gonna put the value, which is 5 seconds. So I'm gonna hit send, and right now we're getting an error saying could not save. We weren't getting an error, and the status code is 500. Remember the status codes that we spoke about previously? 500 means the web server refused to execute the request that we gave it. But anyway, we got the response too quickly, so the web application did not sleep for 5 seconds, and therefore we know that the command that we specified in here did not work. So there is a bit of trial and error to this, and you can actually use the intruder in here to make this faster, but we're gonna talk about that later. So for now, we're gonna stick with this and just do it manually. And basically, you're just gonna have to keep trying different types of payloads until you can get it to work. So I'm going to attach a cheat sheet in here within the resources of this lecture. And as you can see within this cheat sheet, it's going to explain to you the different characters that you can use in order to discover and exploit command injection vulnerabilities. And it's usually stuff that is used in the terminal or in the command prompt to combine two commands. So similar to the comma, you could actually use and, or you could use or, and the list goes on as you see in here. But what I want to do right now, I'm actually adding a semicolon in here. And what I want to do, I want to add another semicolon at the end, just in case there is another command to be executed after the command that I'm injecting. So we don't know how the web application is programmed, and we don't know the code that is used in there. Therefore, there is a trial and error, and therefore I'm assuming, well, maybe my command is being executed between two commands, and therefore I have to add a semicolon before it and a semicolon after it. So I'm gonna hit send, and as you can see, we don't get a response, and we're probably gonna get it after 5 seconds, and as you can see, we actually got the response after 5 seconds. Now to validate this, you can put an even bigger number, so let's put 10 seconds, and send. And now the response should even take longer because now we're sleeping for 10 seconds. And perfect, as you can see, we actually got the response after 10 seconds. So this validates that the target web application is vulnerable to a blind OS command execution. And like I said, from here onwards, if this was a pen test, you can actually inject payloads that will send you a reverse connection to your own computer, and then you'll be able to communicate with the web server using a normal terminal like this one, and directly and interactively execute commands and get the result in here and compromise the whole web application, the whole server, and possibly the whole network. Now, just going back in here to the examples that we have, and just to show you that not only semicolons work, you can actually replace the semicolons with double bars, which means I want to execute whatever command that comes before my command or my command. So I'm going to put one at the front and one at the back. I'm going to send. And again, as you can see, the web application is going to sleep for 10 seconds, meaning that it's actually executing the command that I'm injecting in here. So you shouldn't simply give up if you type a command and you don't get the result. You should test for blind, and you should also test for all of the possible ways of injecting an operating system command, and you can use the intruder feature for that. I will teach you exactly how to use that later on within the course, so don't worry about that for now. The goal of this lecture is to simply learn about blind command execution vulnerabilities.